Many traits of my personality have to do with my attention deficiency more than I could ever think. I realized that ADHD, it's more like a superpower if you can tame the dragon channel and organize your life in such a way. Those can be strengths instead of weaknesses.
Hi, everyone. Today I'm joined by Alessandra Alvarenga, who goes by Ale. She's a Brazilian who has been living in the Montreal area for the past 10 years. Ale is a senior product manager at Fortra, where she leads their security awareness training and content strategy. She is someone who is people first. She mentors, she guides, and she lifts up the people around her. In our conversation, Ale talks about growing up in Brazil, moving often as a pastor's kid, studying in the US, and later choosing to move to Canada with her husband. We also get into language. She not only speaks English and Portuguese, she also speaks French. And we discuss work and what it led her to rebuild her life in Canada. Ale also opens up about living with bipolar disorder and ADHD, how she learned to spot her own patterns, set routines, and turn hyper-focus into a strength. Faith and community play a significant role in her life, including her involvement with the church in the Montreal area. This is a very warm, honest story about caring for others, finding your own home, and giving yourself grace. Let's get started. Ale, thank you for being here again. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Me too. Thank you for inviting me.
Before we dive in, I would like to know how you are. What are you feeling right now? How's the Montreal area?
Yes. So today it's a rainy day here in the Montreal area. I live in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. It's a city 30 minutes from Montreal, South Montreal.
And you lived in that area for 10 years now.
I lived my first 6 years in the city of Montreal. Then we purchased a house actually in another direction, not where we are right now. We lived in this other house for 2 years, and then we decided to get closer to Montreal because we were like 1 hour away from Montreal.
What do you like most about living there?
The city, it's beautiful. I like the vibe of the city. There's a big bridge to get to Montreal itself. Every time I'm going through that bridge called Champlain, I look the Montreal downtown and I fall in love again for the city because it's a beautiful view. Actually, we decided to move here to Montreal because I already knew some people here. So at least I had some network here to help during the period of adaptation. So yeah, that's why we decided to move here.
And Ale, you're from Brazil, and we haven't also talked about the hometown, the specific town that you're from.
Yes, my hometown. Usually people ask, why you are from Brazil? What are you doing in Montreal? It's
Yeah.
what you are doing in Canada, actually.
Yeah.
So it's so cold and you have harsh winters. What are you doing there? Of course, there's nothing similar like that in Brazil, but my city, it's 100 meters above sea level. So that makes the city cold for the patterns of Brazil, right? So during the winters, we can get like -5 easily. But it's a beautiful city. I think Montreal and Curitiba, that's my hometown, they have a lot of things in common. It's a beautiful city. They have like a lot of attractions. The size of the city is about the same as well. With the big difference that over there, I make jokes that usually I feel more cold over there than here because over there, the houses are not prepared for the winters.
Yeah, yes, I get that.
So taking a shower in an electric shower that most people don't know what is that in the winters in a house that's not heated, it's not a most comfortable situation.
Yeah. I totally understand that. There's no heat in Mexico either, and it gets cold. I know you mentioned before that you travel a lot when you were a kid because of your dad. You said that you worked as a pastor, right?
Yes, yes. My dad now is retired, but yeah, he was a pastor for his whole life, and we used to move very frequently. So I have way more than 20 moves throughout my life. All the places I live because of my dad's profession was around 1,000 kilometers from my hometown. If we didn't move from to another city, we would change houses because my dad for most his life he didn't had a own house because of moving so much. We were always trying to find the best place to live.
And what was that like moving so much within the same country and seeing different parts of Brazil?
The earlier years were tougher for me. I remember when I was 8 years old that I was moving from a small city to the capital of one of the states over there. And I remember crying a lot to have to leave my friends. It was really, really hard to have to move very frequently. But I see that that also shaped me to the person I am today. I'm very adaptable
Mhm.
because I had to do that
Yeah,
a lot. But at the same time, every time a friend moves or I move, it's with a heavy heart. I miss my friends a lot. I found coping mechanisms to not suffer so much for leaving my friends.
I totally understand that. Do you have siblings?
I have a brother and he also lives outside of Brazil. He lives in Cambridge, in UK. I I make fun that my parents raised us to be immigrants because we moved so much
Yeah,
that we got used to that.
right. And you moved to the US to study English at the beginning, right? In 2000.
Yeah.
What was what was that decision like? Did your family push you also to do that?
I was having lunch in friend's house, and one of the persons over there, it was a girl named Larissa. She was like a she was very young. I think she was like 19 years old, but she was recruiter for a, Christian university in Keene, Texas. She was telling me about the university, right? So how the university was great, how the course it was great, the ESL courses. The end of that meeting, I decided I was going to go there. And then I started working to raise money to so I could go to US. In May of 2000, I moved to US. I worked the 3 months of vacation at the university to get more money also. And I decided to work in the garden of the university. So I was working in Texas during summer
Wow. Yeah.
outside. I chose that because I want contact with nature. I want to be outside. I didn't want to be cleaning bathrooms or things like that. I want to be outside.
Mhm.
So that's why I choose that.
Well, why did you wanted to do it so badly? Was it in the English or was it moving to the US?
I had a very, I think it was 1 year and a half before I had a breakup and I was engaged at the time. And for a long time, I was very depressed. I didn't had anything that interested me. And somehow I saw the opportunity to study English, to get better, to go live abroad. I think it was the turning point to leave behind all that bad period of depression that I had before. So it was a very exciting moment for me to learn something different, to live abroad, to live by myself without my parents around. I had already lived in a boarding school before, but I would be much more by myself living in the US. So I stayed in the US for about a year. I came back to Brazil 15 days before 9/11. Remember, I was still figuring out what I was going to do. I haven't get back to school yet. I was not working, and I was at home watching TV early morning. And I remember seeing the towers being hit. My brother was still sleeping, and I said, "Hey, wake up. I think we are seeing history to be made." I get goosebumps until now because it was a very, very impactful situation. And I have never seen something like that until that moment.
Yes, and especially
I think
after
nobody had.
you came back right from the US and seeing that must have been
Yeah.
different than people that just watching abroad, getting
Yeah.
that feeling as well. How old were you when you first immigrated to the US?
I had turned 22. I took with me a friend from Brazil. My friend is still living in the US. She got married, she got kids, and yeah, she she's still there.
I know staying is hard, but you decided to come back to Brazil. Did you want that?
During the summer of 2001, at some point, I had something telling me I had to go back. I had to go back. I need to finish my university degree in Brazil. I had just 1 year left. And I said, no, I have to go back. It was probably some impulsivity on my side. I put that in my mind, and I had to go back. Not that it was easy going back. Actually, it was the first time that I realized that going back to your country is harder than leaving. It's much harder. It took me a while to get back on my feet after I came back because everybody's life moved on, right? It was just a year, but it was so much different. And you can get used to the comforts of
Mhm.
reach your country very easily. And going back to things that I had a comfortable life. It was the simple, for example, the fact that I said that houses are not heated and I would feel cold all the time. Just that is already something that bothers you. So during the winters, I had always to be with several layers of clothing inside the house because it was cold. So things like that, it was hard to go back to Brazil. I tried to go back to US later as a intern for architecture in an architecture company. I It didn't work, but for a long, long time, it felt that I was not in my place. I think the worst part was the big, big depression that I got
Mhm.
after I went back there.
And let's talk about the second move that you did. How did that shaped? Was it straight to Canada and also with your now husband, right?
Yes. So I got married, and my husband and I met 1 year before. In 1 year, we got married. We knew that
Mhm.
that was it. I was already 30 something. I was having a hard time finding a good job at that time. So I was either underemployed or not working at all, spending time at home alone sometimes and getting depressed again. So 9 months after we got married, I I was talking to my brother that was already living in UK at the time. He was living in London at the time. And he said, why you stay there? You are suffering so much to make a living. Why you don't come here? And we are kids of immigrant as well. My dad is from Portugal. So we had European citizenship. So at that time was easy to go there. But a bunch of friends of from my church had moved to Montreal. I remember ending the call and talking to my husband. Why? don't we go to Canada? Why we don't go to Montreal? Why not London? Because London, I knew I wouldn't be able to apply my profession over there, neither my husband. So we decided in 1 week, my husband was convinced that we should have the Montreal plan, the Montreal project. So we started learning French. We started plans to come here to do recognition trip, like try to understand how was the city, if it was really that we want. It took us from that day that I told him why we don't go to Montreal. It took 5 years and a half for us to move to Montreal. Yeah, it was a long process.
And your husband's motivation, was it the first time that he also lived somewhere else?
It was the first time he ever considered living abroad. He came from a very humble family. They didn't have much financial condition at that time. So living abroad like I did before in 2000, it was not an option for them. He is the type of guy that loves geography, loves history. So growing up in his wardrobe, he had a flag, sticker of a Brazil flag and beside a Canada flag. He liked the country already,
Yeah.
but he never thought about that. I'm Seventh-day Adventist. So we are Christians. We both grew up in the family with those beliefs, but we never met before 1 year we got married. When we started dating, we met 1 week before.
Okay. Where do you meet?
At church because of friends.
Okay. Yes.
He had moved to my hometown because of work, and he was a very good friend of a guy that I helped to start dating one of my best friends.
Mm. Oh.
And then when he came to my hometown, to Curitiba, they said, "Hey, Ali, what are you doing today?" It was a Saturday. "We want to introduce you to someone." It was already clear the intentions
Yeah.
they had.
Yeah.
And at the end of that day, we already had arranged to have lunch together in the next Saturday
Wow.
in my house.
So you two moved fast. You got your
Yeah,
date, you are engaged, you decided to move.
yeah,
You made decision fast.
yeah.
Um, and I want to understand the correlation a little bit more of the church in Brazil and your church community in Montreal. Is there a strong Montreal, or first Christian community and also Brazilian?
Yes, it's a Brazilian Seventh-day Adventist church in the Montreal area. We have a very strong community over there. It's around 120 adults, plus the children and youth. That is a lot of people. I'm very involved all over
Yeah,
with the program over there.
I had no idea. I don't think it's very well known. Montreal overall, that there's a strong Brazilian community.
It's very secular city. The religion it's not very well looked by the majority of the population. Usually they see Christianity as something that the immigrants or any kind of religion, not only Christianity, it's something that comes with immigrants because people that are original from here, usually they are not religious at all.
That's interesting. There are a lot of immigrants in
Yeah.
Montreal area.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people from India, Muslims, Latin America, there's a lot of people, Italians, Portuguese from Portugal, those Chinese, those are strong communities over here.
Going back to the move and how you two made that move together, what was that like at the beginning? You mentioned before that you started to learn French. From what I know, there's a mix of French and English.
Yeah. My French level was intermediary. And on top of that, at that time, I was already working as business analyst at HSBC Bank and in a project with Canada. So when I moved here, they said, we are going to open a position for you here. So it took me 4 months, but then in January, I started working in the same project I was working in Brazil, but HSBC, it's English. So my first 2 years here, I was working English. So I didn't practice my French in my first 2 years. In the end of 2016, they laid me off because they asked me to move to Toronto over Vancouver. And because my husband, he didn't had English, only French. And I said, I'm not going to move to another place. So he needs to start learning another language from scratch. So I decided to stay here. And then it took me 10 months to get another job. And one of the hardest things was the French requirement. I didn't have French. I had to find company that was not requiring French. And because of I was a business analyst at the time, it is a profession that requires you to be proficient in the language. How to gather requirements, you have to interview people to gather those requirements. You need to be proficient in the language. So it was simply more comfortable for myself to stay in English, even though I still have things to learn in English.
Yeah.
You never, it's something that I will never get 100% fluent, but it's much more than in French. Because here we have employment insurance, right? I was allowed to receive for, I think it's 40 weeks. So I received my last employment insurance that I was allowed to receive. And the next week, I received my first paycheck at at the new job. So it was like, we were almost out of money at that point, and my husband was only studying at the time. He had any scholarship for that, but it was not that big amount. But God kept us during that year, during 10 months, and we didn't have to leave. He was able to keep only studying. It went well.
And so when you moved to Montreal, he was studying this whole time.
Yeah. Because he was an accountant in Brazil. And here he would have to do some studies to be able to work in the same area.
Visa related, when you moved, I'm guessing that your company, HSBC, they sponsor
No,
any type of visa?
not
No?
really. No, we came as permanent residents.
Wow.
They had the program at that time that we could come as permanent residents. That's why it took so long for us to come here, because the process, it was really long. So we had to had a certain level of French to have it was a point-based program. So if you had the points, you would have an interview. If you passed the interview, then you would receive the certificate from Quebec that allows you to apply for the permanent residence with the government of Canada. So we were lucky because right now this program, it's almost inexistent. We were lucky, but that we could come like that. So we were safe visa wise. So we had the right to be here.
That's so interesting. And how, no, I had no idea that you could do this process from abroad as long as you knew the language and you could be a permanent resident in Canada. And you didn't
That's
have,
almost inexistent right now, but
yeah,
that was the case 10 years ago.
and you didn't have to have a job secured. Okay.
I had to had a plan what I was going to do here
Yeah.
for some time. When I did the interview to receive the permission to apply for the permanent residency with Canada, I didn't know HSBC was going to give me a job.
Oh, wow.
I knew that probably 6 months before or 1 year before, not much before I came here.
Yeah, that's the timing is unbelievable. Let's talk about your career now. You work in cybersecurity and talk a little bit about that.
So I went from architecture and urban planning to the technology area because about the same time I had my conversation with my brother about moving somewhere else. My dad told me, "You are married, but choose a course. I will pay for you to do this course because you are suffering right now. So choose something and I will pay for you." So at that time, there was a school that were doing courses in programming and cybersecurity. And the teachers were from HSBC Bank. They were not, they were professionals at HSBC Bank. And the, the advertising was, if you are a good student, we can give you an opportunity for an interview. So I it's funny because first I said I'm going to take the course in cybersecurity. But there was only one position open in HSBC for cybersecurity. And there was, I think, 10 or 20 open positions for programmers in COBOL mainframe. That's an old language that only banks and governments still use. The other areas don't use that anymore. And I decided I'm not going to be emotional at this time. I'm going to be rational. I'm going to do this course, programming course, because it has more opportunities for me to get into the area. And that's what I did. 3 months later, I got my first interview.
Oh, well.
And they hired me. 1 month later, I was working as a trainee, developer trainee. I never developed one single line of code inside HSBC. But because I had English, they asked me to do a lot of documentation. 1 year later, I had my first paid vacations in my life.
Oh.
I was 30 something already.
Mm.
And And then I came to Montreal. And when I came back, there was a massive layoff in the bank. There was administrative changes. But when I came back, my manager got another position and he pulled me into this new area that was being formed. And that is when I started as business analyst.
Okay.
From business analyst, I went to product owner, to product manager. That's what I am today. So
Mhm.
that showing how I moved there. And then I went from HSBC Bank to another financing company. And then I got in the company I'm working today because of a friend that I did at the financing company. We used to work together and he moved to my current company. So he brought me in, and then I started as product owner for this cybersecurity awareness training.
And you still work in English for them.
This company that I started working, Turnover Security, was purchased by a US company, Fortran. And at the beginning, because this Turnover Security had a huge presence here in Quebec, I had more opportunity to develop a little bit more my French, not much. I'm still far, far from the fluency I have in English. Even though now it's an American company, I had the opportunity to practice more my French here.
So the language overall, aside from work, living in Montreal, would you say it's still a challenge, or you feel overall comfortable?
During the summer, I had to take my mom to the hospital. My mom was staying here for the summer with my dad, and she had to go to the hospital. And I was so happy that I was able to say everything in French. I was so happy. So now I'm more and more comfortable with the French. Last year, I took some classes that was paid by the company because there's some requirements about French and everything. So that helped me also. I guess I'm just too comfortable with the English that I can do everything in English.
Yes, yes. Some countries give you the option of just being comfortable in English because a lot of people speak the language. How about for your husband? Is he fluent in French?
He's much more fluent in French because he works in French and he doesn't know English. I mean, he understands a lot, but he never formally studied English. And since here most of the companies don't have that as a requirement, he just stayed on the French side.
Yeah, that's interesting how you both went into different
Yeah.
languages. Um, how often do you both go back to Brazil?
Not very often, less than we would like. So we moved in 2015 September, and the first time I went back, it was May 2022. So it was almost 7 years
Mhm.
until I. After that, I went in January 2023.
Do you see yourself or you both together ever going back for good or no?
No, for us, home now is here. I guess because of those conflicts that I mentioned, and also because professionally speaking, would be harder for us to find something over there. The safety over there is not that good. The economic scenario not good as well. So I think we will stay here unless something happens and we have to go back. But if we can choose, we would stay here.
I understand that. I want to shift a little bit into what you and I have talked about before. You were all talking about ADHD and bipolar disorder. Talk a little bit how did
Mhm.
that came up in your life? How are you dealing with that today?
Yeah. First, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but that was when I was already uh, 20, 24, 25 years old. My first depression, I was 10 years old. So it was the first time I remember having a depression. Then I had another one, I was 12, then 15, when I came back from US with 24 years old. And that was the worst. At that time, a cousin had finished his specialization in psychiatry. And he was saying to my mom, Shirley, please tell Ali to come to see me. I know what she has. She has bipolar disorder. This runs in the family. Go there. And I would say, huh, I'm not going to talk with my cousin about it. I'm not going to tell him my things because I was in so bad shape. I went to another psychiatry and she started giving me antidepressants. At some point, she said, I suspect you might have bipolar disorder. I have never heard about it. Never, never. However, if you have bipolar disorder and you take a antidepressant without a mood stabilizer, that will make your bipolar disorder worse. So before, my cycles would be 6 months, 1 year, something like that. Then I started cycling every 2 weeks
What does that mean, cycling?
from depression to mania, depression, mania, depression, mania. So depression, everybody knows, but the maniac episodes is like you are very impulsive, you will spend too much money, you take decisions without thinking too much. You saw from my story that I took several times decisions like this. But my maniac episodes were not so high. I was between medium and low depression, just slide over in the maniac episodes. So when I started cycling, having those mood changes every 2 weeks. I thought I was crazy. I was totally crazy. So I had 2 weeks that I was so well, and 2 weeks I was so depressed. After the third cycle, I told my mom, if that happens again, please take me to the hospital, psychiatry hospital, because I'm crazy.
That was when you were in Brazil in your 20s.
It was 25 to 20, 25 to 26 already. At that point, it was when I accepted to go talk with my cousin. He gave me a mood stabilizer. And I remember I think it was after 15 days of medication, I went back to his office and I remember saying, now I can listen the sound of the silence, because my mind was working so much all the time, thinking, and it was noisy inside my brain. So, and I couldn't rest. So then I started taking medication. It took a long time to find a good medication. I tried a lot of medications, a lot of medications. Finally, I found something that worked with me. Only recently, I started reducing a little bit, changing things a little bit here and there, but I'm still following up with uh, with a psychiatry at least once a year.
Why you changed things?
Because the medication was, for example, it sounds funny. I had a heavy weight in my legs that I couldn't walk. So I was always so tired. And I start realizing it was the medication. So the medication was bringing too many uh, side effects. I think it was 1 or 2 years after I started treating bipolar disorder. I suspected I had ADHD. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's
yes,
a little
for
bit
me to say.
tricky.
Yes.
And then I went to a psychologist to make the consultation. She diagnosed me with ADHD. I was doing therapy at that time with another psychologist, and she didn't want to do the test on me because she had another priorities at that moment. So I went on her back and I went to another psychologist to take the test. And she was really mad at me. For a long, long time, I didn't take seriously that I had attention deficiency because she got mad at me. I invalidated what I have done, the other diagnosed with the other psychiatrist. So for a long time, I took medication, but I didn't know about coping mechanisms. I didn't read much about it and all, not much of that. When it was in 2018, my husband and I, we said, let's try to have a baby. Then I stopped taking the medication for ADHD. And I stopped for for a long, long time. And just recently, I had early menopause. And I think it was last year. The symptoms of the menopause with ADHD was so heavy. And I started reading about it. Then I realized that's my attention deficiency. Having a heavy toll with the hormones changes and everything. I need to get back on medication. At the same time, I start reading more about it. And then I realized that many traits of my personality have to do with my attention deficiency more than I could ever think. And recently I started reading a book about it that's written for women. And I realized that ADHD, it's more like a superpower if you can um, tame the dragon, let's say, like channel and organize your life in such a way, those can be strengths instead of weaknesses. Since since I owned again this diagnosed, and I have done so many changes in my life. I incorporated so many new habits in my life because my life was a mess. I was just surviving. I was not producing much because my job, because of the energy I had to make to do minimally my job, was so big. At the end of the day, I was done. I couldn't do anything else. So once I realized I was spending more energy than I should because of the disorder, then now I'm starting incorporating new routines, self care, like skincare. It's something that I never had the the habit of doing, and now I'm doing for at least more than 100 days in a row. So I have an app right now to remember me. Hey, you have to do this.
I want to go deeper in these changes, but for people that don't understand ADHD and from the things that you learned recently, ways that you change, habits that you have changed in your life, what are some things that you think like, oh, why is nobody talking about this? This surprised me. Some of the stuff that you learned that are not very well known.
When you call something attention deficiency, you think the person has no brain, right? It's something you forget things all the time. I always ask too much of myself. So I have to do right. I have to do right. So I was always in this sense of alertness to do things right. So you think that most of the people are just like head in the sky and all this. But you also have a hyper focus. So things that you love, you can concentrate so much that you don't hear someone calling you. Another thing that I learned, it's the auditory capacity. My parents are older and they have decreased hearing, but they were talking small, like soft around the other room, and I would hear what they were saying. How do you hear that? I my hearing, it's a little bit above average, I think. But at the same time, for example, if I'm in a loud environment with music to have dinner with friends and we try to talk to, I cannot understand people. So I learned that has to do with the disorder as well. So I always felt why I can't understand people speaking plain English across a table in a loud environment. Why I ask what to say? What did you say? What did you say? All the time. I get tired of it. It seems that I'm done because I'm asking this all the time until I realize, no, this is something because the environment sounds so loud, I cannot filter. It gets all confused and I cannot understand well what someone in front of me is saying. That I found out like a few months ago. I realized that something that bothered me so much about asking people, what did you say? What did you say all the time? It was not my fault. It was something that the way I'm wired, but it happens.
Wow. That's amazing that you, after all this time, you understand. It happens, I think, in many different ways for many parts of our personality that we're just like, I'm so frustrated with this, and I finally understand that. I could ask you a million questions about this, but I want to just go back to one thing that you said when you're doing something that you love and you can't hear anything else, what would be that thing for you that you absolutely love?
It can be arts and crafts. I love doing things with my hands, like building miniature houses, putting a puzzle together, or stitching. I don't do as much as I would like, but when I doing, I get focused on that. Lately, there's another thing that I get very, very focused. I'm the person responsible for the communication department at my church. So media, transmission, the sound system, everything falls under me. I'm the coordinator of all those areas. And those are areas that, but if it doesn't work, interrupts the work of everybody else. My brain is always, do they need my help? It's something not going right. Or if I see something, I'm always in alert mode.
Mhm.
If something is not right, I'm the first one to stand up and find the solution for the person that is having a problem at that moment. My husband sometimes get bothered because I'm not at his side during the service. He likes to be with me during
Mhm.
the service. Then I realized this is my hyper focus right now. I'm always thinking, what do they need? And that goes also hand to hand with something on my personality that I like to service people. I like to help people. I'm always, how can I help? What they need from me? What I'm always in alert mode.
Yeah. I can see that. I can imagine that your mind is so focused, hyper focused on that, and anything else disappears. What else are you enjoying of your life right now, either in Montreal, about yourself? What is making you happy these days?
For me, one of the things that makes me more happy, being a pastor's kid and having almost 50 years old, I have never read the Bible entirely. I had read parts of it, but not back to back. And I started in March, and since then, I have been reading every single day. Maybe in those 7 months, I have missed 1 or 2, 3 days at most. All started with that small thing, that having a new habit in my life. And on top of that, I have been able to incorporate so many other new habits because that was something that was bothering me, like just surviving. I was in surviving mode. So now I'm actually living. The other thing that brings me a lot of joy is my husband, of course. We are best friends. We are together all the time. And even though we don't have kids, we tried to have kids, we couldn't have kids. I have a Samoyed dog, Luna,
Yeah.
that she's the joy of my life. She's so lovely. She's so amazing. That helped me a lot during a very difficult time lately when I finally had to accept that I couldn't have kids. So she was key on that situation.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And yeah, I think I can stay on those things.
Thank you, Ali, for sharing all of this. And yes, I totally, yeah, my dog is right here with me. And she's like my best friend too.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you. Um, I feel like I can go even deeper, and your story is so interesting. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And I like to talk. So if you give me time, I will talk.
I'm glad. Me too. Thank you so much. I hope this story made you pause, reflect, or maybe even feel a little more connected to your own story. To support this podcast, please give us a rating and share it with someone that could also connect. This really helps others discover the stories. I'll see you in the next episode.